Now you're talking about blows to the brain and the head, injures people. It may look great on a scan, but it doesn't change the character of people, because if I can show you one man, Georgie Walker, who was the toughest fighter you could. He only had one way of stopping a punch, and that was with his head. He's a millionaire now, runs £1 million company, and he can. So if his brain had been damaged, but you're talking purely on the technical side of it all.
6.
But is banning the answer, do you think? I mean, for a start, are you going to be able to enforce a ban? Isn't it just going to, like everything else that you ban, go underground, and then there won't be any control over it at all? Dr. Nathanson.
If it goes underground, one hopes that promoters won't be the people making money out of the suffering of others long term. One hopes that a ban will work. If it doesn't work, and if the people who like boxing don't want a ban, then it's up to them to look for a way to avoid head injury. We know that head guards aren't going to be the answer.
7.
They're not going to be the answer, because they are in fact used at amateur level in the Olympics, for example.
Well, in the Olympics at the present time, and then I say the American servicemen have had head guards. They've boxed with head guards for years. No, they don't. There's certain doctors in the BMA, and there's other doctors who come out and say that, you know, wearing bigger gloves, wearing head guards, they cause more injury. They cause more because it shakes the brain more.
8.
I say scan boxes as often. Well, we never profess there's no danger to it, and that's good. Scan them, medically examine them. But if you ban it, as you say, it'll go underground. Then there's no control of it at all. If it goes underground, then you'll have more fatalities, because you'll have people who won't be having medicals and won't be going in there fit and won't be trained, and you'll get elderly guys who shouldn't be in the ring. Boxing is a young man's sport, and thank God the younger ones stick at it or stay at it.
9.
I don't think there is chronic brain damage, and you can only tell by the people you know and the people you talk to who have been in the game how they react years later.
But there are lots of punch-drunk
boxers. You tell me.
Really?
You name me the punch-drunk boxers. You name me punch-drunk boxers. Years ago, there used to be, but not modern-day boxing. When fighters were having 200-300 fights in the career, I would agree. If these doctors were campaigning in the 20s and the 30s, I would agree with them.
10.
So you would say, in fact, that the controls are good enough to stop that kind of serious damage happening?
It is, and not the control, because fighters are not having the fights. If you look at any modern-day fighter, I bet you couldn't name me any professional fighter boxing today in Britain who has had 100 professional fights. No one. Yeah, in the 20s, I could tell you, I could name them off, string a name, who had 400 or 500 fights. Naturally, they ended up in a bad way, but not nowadays.
11.
Yes, but it's not just the professional bout. And the other thing is that although we're talking about modern-day boxers and you can CAT scan them and test them and so on, OK, you take the licence away and say you can't box anymore because your scans are abnormal. But the point is that the damage is there and it can't be treated.
12.
Well, there we have to leave it, I'm afraid. Dr. Nathanson, Henry Cooper, thank you very much. This is Mary White at the BBC in London.
Kort na het voorgaande gesprek besteedde de BBC opnieuw aandacht aan de gevaren van het boksen, naar aanleiding van de dood van Steve Watt, kampioen van Schotland in het weltergewicht. Luistert u naar gespreksleider Andrew Dunn. Er hoeft nog niets te worden ingevuld.
From the BBC in London, this is Andrew Dunn. Well, with me to discuss whether or not boxing should be banned are Dr. Jeff Cundy, a member of the BMA's Board of Science, and Dr. Adrian Whiteson, Chief Medical Officer of the British Boxing Board of Control.
We vervolgen de toets nu met opgave 13.
Well, if I can start with you, Dr. Cundy. Why are you so concerned about boxing in particular?
Because boxing is unique in that the aim of boxing is to stop the other person's brain functioning, to knock them out, and brain damage is inevitable in the process of boxing. It is a dangerous sport in terms of deaths. If you relate the deaths to the length of time the boxers in the ring, on that basis it's as dangerous as motorcycling.
13.
Well, Dr. Whiteson, would you say that the sort of controls that are now in force in British boxing, under the administration of your Boxing Board of Control, are strict enough, in your view, to prevent accidental damage?
You're never going to totally eliminate either the death in any sport or any other form of damage. The most important thing to realise is that professional and amateur boxers know those risks. And this is my job and the job of the Boxing Board of Control to ensure that they do and they're prepared to take those risks.
14.
Jeff Cundy.
Well, I think Steve Watt's death is basically the tip of an iceberg. The evidence that we have is that a boxer of a career of his length, 1 in 2 will show evidence of shrinkage of the brain on the special X-ray, the CITO scan of the brain, and roughly 15% of boxers who continue to box will progress to the punch-drunk syndrome. And that is a very serious level of morbidity from the sport.
15.
Adrian Whiteson, if boxing were banned completely in Britain, or even just limited to people over 18, what do you think would be the effects of those sort of moves?
I don't think that either the boxer or necessarily his parents know precisely what they may be doing to themselves at a young age. And I think that one has got to start looking at the age that a boxer starts. Once he does get to 16, 17 or 18, then you can certainly make him aware of the problems that could exist.
16.
But isn't one of the arguments for having boxing that it takes aggression out of young people off the streets and into the ring?
Without proper controls and without proper checkups, then I think you may get more problems than you want. But I don't think you can ever ban the sport. I'd like to ask anyone from the BMA how they think they're going to. I mean, are they going to stand on the street corners and monitor it? Now, legislation is fine, but how on earth do you carry it out?
17.
I think one educates the public, and our decision that the sport should be banned had the proviso that it should be through public education. The debate over the unfortunate issue of Steve Watt's death has brought a lot of evidence to light, and whilst one's still worried that the damage is carrying on, I think in time the public will come to say we don't wish to see this on our television screens, we don't want young people to do it, and we would see the sport atrophying away.
18,
Is there a moral argument, too, in all this, that boxing is just a sort of legalised form of violence?
I think the argument that it perhaps is part of the basis of violence in our society because it's seen so much on television needs looking at. I think the question of disciplining young people also needs to be looked at. Since our report has been produced, no one has produced evidence that young people have less petty crimes, that they have better school results, that they have better job opportunities because they belong to a boxing club. If the evidence is there, we'd like to see it.
19,
May I just come back on that and say that certainly as far as violence is concerned and crime is concerned, that young people who are involved in all contact sports, including boxing, have far less problems. They appear far less in court. And it does channel violence and it does take them off street corners, and I think it's important. The other thing is, talking about television and radio, the viewing figures for television, as far as boxing is concerned, are enormous.
20,
Isn't that just a comment on the bloodthirsty condition of society?
To a certain extent, but there is a very, very important factor here that I don't think people realise, that boxing is between two consenting, certainly professional boxing, between two consenting adults. They know the risks, they're prepared to take them, and in fact they do actually derive both financial and physical benefit from it.
21,
You do not get as many head injuries, either acute or chronic head injuries, as the BMA would like everybody to think. Because although they've quoted figures in their own reports, those figures are based on years and years of retrospective study of boxers who boxed years ago. There are very few people suffering from punch-drunk syndrome among young modern boxers today. We're aware of this, and we have the situation at the moment where we try and stop boxers boxing before they show any signs of any problems.
22,